hini kayagi kona sexual assault prevention. The Nigi kona for Navajo Nation Council kona subcommittee ni glon members and a glon kona kwaki every month kona kwa he kato kwa la be need on the be my yade hit the corner regarding prevention in our communities and schools and Heavenly Father God our homes as well. Be need with the Department of Justice and also with the public safety and competent counselors and leading social workers and leading the home. At isn't that you'll take it, isn't that this angi corner, but shock the that egi shantano one his the has not we need in the papayate corner according to our agenda. Not also cash dragging and sad and then give it a payate the corner of Pagi Satan Hanan, Sata in a hayat the corner by Yachel corner and stuff. La wind on the Pagi Aya Mape, baby hatchet says the corner of Pagi Aya con, be Nibi con, a baby Nian Benani in the corner of Pagi Aya and he'll know that get us so in the corner. His Zad, the Niki corner bar will chin to the corner bar will yard of this corner. In the corner, the corner, that corner, he can't manage, can't manage in the corner, and lay the corner kid had any corner, but nowadays hit the corner, bunny, Baba, and Danny cart or the corner, the corner. Yada a corner the jet as the leaps in case that's the ski the corner in the corner the well-being and then corner ape and natural corner the corner at the corner by your day school based on linear so man in the quiet so they need in the corner it out a cut the trust of the out a but based on the standard of Asia yet the no corner they need in the corner in the corner so this Good Friday corner, but that's Christians are leaning corner celebrate this corner, the Sunday corner being Easter weekend corner with our Hashin and Kendo call it Ashin corner and Sadak his corner that a corner now the and the natural a corner we were risen crucified and natural a need into the way while it's in corner hard and natural mission are Jesus Christ leaning corner Hashin civil corner you were crucified for us and our sins corner on the honest corner Nikit and the Kada Kono, Anil Fantastic Zeto Anil Kono, look at our needs at the Sakona, happy upon us, forgive us, it's time, one of our shortfalls and our shortcomings, the Moko, the engines had been in the engine, and then he caught the corner, and then he caught it on Lane, and I thought on Lane, when he passes and he preaches of Lane, I have less than 9 out of the corner, their songs and the prayers, citizen Yada, Yada, Akon, Hata, Hata, so that the Niki corner a natural corner at the cutlet not the clinic and the chapter level, community level, and the council, that is on the clinic business under the loan, then it's Celeste, and then give president or vice president, and the corner, my chief justice, ranching, and the corner, our judges, prosecutors, and leaning, so Benastate or community members on leaning corner. They go laid up with the Shinaki, and the Dalki corner at Elpon, that's another similar corner, this kind of the corner, and then he not lost it on leaning corner. In the Hiki corner, see that a the better age is that a cushion that a corner on the kid, not a color can only dollar con in the corner, done not lost corner as on that a corner at that high corner and that not and that corner in the corner that could be at the Bogan corner for it or the competition, but cannot hit either the corner at the corner.
Yeah,
corner. Even the engine, so the same engine, not each cut of that corner. And then he one has again, so now the corner he one honest order the corner into the corner. So he been go ahead and leaning on the Bible and leaning the corner. And go ahead and manage so the manager, not you can't the corner, but I had the corner, and they cut it so he didn't go the corner in the corner also corner. He ate and leaning on Toyota, ate over the corner. He gave it that echo corner in our kid and leaning, shut a kid and leaning. On it to the cat, he educated and leaning corner, then he in the corner, and also corner, he be like in the leather and leaning chair and leaning corner, so I got a hot etol, but I should change it out and the Kennedy corner art, the corner, that icon to just even the engine suggesting range, and each counter that corner, and get that corner, and the children and leaning corner, so each on the cabbage and the dart, and then get the corner, was $9 corner at the corner, and the cabbage on the dart, the corner, the health, the wellness, leading corner, at the corner, have a whole yard on the corner, at the corner, one to the cut of the corner, at the corner, he was on the corner. Not at the children, not as count, Gianna's never the corns on Hidini or the corner, even just so this then the legend nice control like on this morning corner the corner 18% hagi other bus of this and then the quagi also shopping link on the corner his our corner shop on some case of the corner the internet and clean corner or even yanges for some yanges nice candle like this morning corner in the dark ego and says look at our see the look at and this says case and the corner forgive me at this time corner these sort of an even much a corner at the corner quite is my agent leak out the house of the diesel no quantity benefit quite come back hands and so he need the corner even just listen to the corner say these things in your holy son's name Jesus Christ amen just clean just clean just clean just clean.
Yes, I appreciate that beautiful, beautiful prayer. Very heartfelt and just restored me. So yeah, I hope all of us on the call just got that prayer. So Shada Lorene, we're gonna move forward with the recognition of guests. So I wanted to ask committee members, delegates, do you have any recognitions that you want to provide today for the committee?
Jama, Mayaja.
Yes.
I want to give a recognition, a shout out. I know they're not listening because of their work, but yesterday, Office of Dene Youth for Defiance, and I'm sure the other agencies as well, they did a drive-by Easter celebration for our children and our families. And For Defiance did that yesterday. It was really neat. I drove by there, I visited my former staff, and to see the different programs and departments out there, greeting these families, grandmothers and grandchildren and parents and their children as they did the drive-by Easter festivities there. And it was a good turnout. They did one like that for Christmas and also for Halloween. And each of those, they got over 300 youth and families that went through their drive-by. That was really something to see and to be
thank you for sharing
witness,
that.
because I know that during this pandemic, a lot of our families and our children, they had their little minds really wandering, wondering how things were going to be for themselves and their families and their grandparents, and something like that, to take their mind off of something so negative, Thank you to the For Defiance agencies, all the other agencies that probably did something or are doing something today for our community members in that way. So just wanted to give a shout out to them, Mayaja. Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you for that. It's always good to give recognition to our community and recognize the work that they're doing to uplift. I appreciate that. Delegates, are there any other recognitions or acknowledgements you'd like to share this morning with the committee? Okay, I do want to recognize that our staff, and in mentioning Good Friday, our staff has been provided 4 hours administrative leave. And so honoring that request coming from the Office of the Speaker, how we're going to move forward with the agenda is if you're attending this meeting and want to be recognized for the record, we did have Miss Laughter recognized earlier. I'm going to go through the Zoom call, and so if you call on Zoom or if you are able to access the line, we see your name. So I want to recognize Shiaz Vernon Jackson, Acting Chief Prosecutor for the Navajo Nation. I want to recognize Alexandria Duane. I'm going to say Principal Advocate with the Office of the Prosecutor. I do see Kelsey Lansing. Kelsey, are you with SAS in Durango? You could unmute if you need to correct me. Shadeja, Kelsey.
Yes, I am with the Sexual Assault Services Organization in Durango, Colorado.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and I appreciate all the work you're doing up in the Durango area with our families. And then we have Shanella Laurel Shepherd with Victim Services of Coconino County, and also co-director of the OVC Victim Services on Navajo. We have Lean Bitsui, community member, calling in, and Shadeja, if you want to correct your position, please unmute yourself. We do have R. Johnson for the record. R. Johnson, can you identify? I'm sorry, my cat muted me. R. Johnson, can you identify yourself for the record, please?
Hi, good morning. My name is Rose Johnson, community member. Thank you.
Oh, Shade, thank you for joining us. And then we have Shiaj Tristan Black with Navajo Nation Youth Council. And are any of the callers calling in? Do you want to identify yourself for the record?
This is Renee Ornelas. I'm the director of the Family Advocacy Center at Sahutzel Medical Center.
Oh, yeah, thank you for joining the call. We definitely need to reconnect on some of the work that we wanted to do. And we have been meeting with criminal investigators, so we hope we could continue that conversation. Thank you for joining us. Anyone else would like to identify themselves for the record that are call-in?
Hello, Honorable Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Olana. Thank you, Honorable Chair and committee members, council members, and community members and advocates. My name is Olana Kindness, and I'm a consultant with Restoring Ancestral Winds, the Domestic and Sexual Assault Coalition serving Great Basin area nations.
Yeah, Alana, thank you for joining us. Any other callers that want to identify themselves?
Hi,
Good
Amber.
morning.
Is that Miss Trudy Sosi?
Yes, it is. This is Trudy Sosi, Principal Victim Advocate for the Family Harmony Program. Just calling in and listening. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shade. And then caller ending with 306. You unmuted your line. Do you want to introduce yourself for the record?
Hi, Amber. Yat Bennett. It's Fawn Esky from Northern Navajo Medical Center Mental Health.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Shadeja, for joining us. So callers, if I could ask you, if you're not currently speaking, if you could mute your lines. And I believe if you call in, that's *6. That helps us on our end as we record this meeting. It's a formal meeting, and we also, I believe we're going to be online. So you might be ordering your coffee or your burrito, and you'll make us hungry. So please mute your lines. Thank you. But you may unmute if you want to be identified for the record. We're at the point of our agenda of recognizing guests and visiting officials.
Good morning. This is Savannah Joe, a victim specialist at the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of New Mexico. Thank you for inviting me to be in your space.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shadeja, for joining us and in your new position and role. We appreciate that.
Good morning. This is Shannon Hoshnick with Sexual Assault Services of Northwest New Mexico. In Farmington, I'm the Rural Programs Director, Victim Advocate, and Prevention Specialist.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shade, for joining the call. I do want to inform all of our guests that if you're on the NACASA listserv, we're trying to not only share the agenda, but also share any of the reports and documents that are received from the committee. And so we're hoping to share more information and as we build up our policy and identify where we need some policy reform. So thank you for being on the call. Anyone else on the line that needs to identify themselves for the record?
Good morning. This is Althea James, victim witness advocate for Fort Defiance Department of Family Services. Good morning, everyone.
Oh, yeah, thank you for joining us. Okay, so if anybody else needs to be recognized, just please email myself at acrotty@navajo-nsn.org, and we'll make sure that you're recognized for the record. Thank you for joining us. So we'll move on with our agenda. We'll move on with our agenda, and we'll review and adopt the agenda. Dispenser, please read the agenda into the record, and we can move forward with the motion, second, and vote. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Agenda of the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee of the Navajo Expert Committee of the 24th Nomination Council. Regular meeting through telecommunication, Friday, April 15, 2022, 10 a.m. Presiding Amber Knasbach Crotty, Chairwoman, Nathaniel Brown, Vice Chairperson. Number 1, call meeting to order, will call an invitation. Number 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. Number 3, review and adopt agenda. Number 4, review and adopt journals, there's none. 5, receiving reports. A, report from Dolores Gray Eyes, PhD Director, Department of Corrections, regarding victim services within the corrections facilities. Item B, report from Vernon Jackson, Acting Chief Prosecutor, Office of the Prosecutor, regarding U.S. DOJ tribal consultation status of SA cases and AUSA decline cases. Number 6, old business, none. 7, new business, none. 8, closed meeting. Announcement and adjournment. Madam Chair, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shade. Committee members, may I receive a motion for the agenda?
Motion, Stewart.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. Motions, a second. Committee members, may we receive a second motion for the agenda, please?
Delegate James, second.
Thank you, Chair. Delegate James, second. Are there any questions? Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. Shadeja Sherrill, please help with the vote roll call. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote? Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Yeah, this is Delegate Brown. I just got on the line. What are we voting on now?
On adopting the agenda, Mr. Brown.
Okay, I vote green. Yeah.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Madam Chair, Crotty, 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 not voting. Chair.
Well, yeah, thank you, Shadeja. I appreciate that. So moving on with the agenda, review and adopt journals, we have none. And then we'll move on to reports. We have a report from Dr. Dolores Gray Eyes, Director, Department of Corrections, regarding victim services within corrections facility. Shade, we received the written report. Was that sent out to committee members?
Yes, Madam Chair, I sent it out to the committee members.
Okay, I appreciate that. And we'll make sure that that is also, I believe I just forwarded that to the NACASA email listserv. And what we can do is I will send them your contact information, Ms. Spencer, so that they can be added when the agenda is available, and then any written reports that's submitted to the committee. So we'll work on that together. Thank you. So committee members, may I receive a motion for the report, the written report from Department of Corrections?
This is Delegate Brown. I'll motion.
Okay, then I'll second.
Thank you, Delegate Brown. Motion, second by Delegate Stewart. Committee members, are there any questions regarding the report? I do apologize that that was sent out just recently, but please review the document and let me know if you have any questions regarding the report at this time. Okay, hearing none. Some questions, Ms. Spencer, in terms of when we spoke with our advocates and who were able to just review the document. We do have some initial questions. It appears that the written report focus was on, and maybe we just needed to clarify the questions we were asking. The intent was to find out the role that Department of Corrections plays in notifying the survivors or victims of violence, what type of rights or what type of resources they provide to the inmates who have been convicted of assault or sexual assault or other charges. And so this report will need additional information. So at this time, regarding the report, we do have, let me pull this up. We do have some preliminary questions. So and I will send this to you, Shade. But so additional questions from the report is the committee will need to know, what does their process look like for victim notification when a defendant is being released? What support information is being shared with victims as their perpetrator is being released? What are growth areas the Department of Correction foresees when it comes to victim notification? And what are the growth areas in services for the incarcerated when they become victims while incarcerated? And so I will forward this to your email, and we can provide that information to Dr. Gray Eyes. And also in terms of, especially when it comes to sexual assault, we'll need to know how inmates are being protected, and also in terms if they are the perpetrator and are in tribal custody for a sexual assault case, what type of resources are provided. So I will forward this to you, Shade, and I appreciate your support on this. So committee members, at this point, just in reading the written report, those are 4 follow-up questions we'll ask. And this stems from a conversation with advocates who are helping our victims who are getting services through either a medical exam or making the initial report. We had heard that there was some concerns in the type of information that's being shared by Department of Corrections or the type of resources they provide to incarcerated relatives, so that it can give them the support that they need, so that they do not recommit some of these crimes, or the prevention of habitual behavior. And so I'll pause there, committee members. Let me know if you have any more questions or concerns that you want to add, or we'll continue to work with our advisor on those questions and recommendations. Okay. So if there's no other questions or recommendations from the committee, we can move to to the vote. Should Deja please assist the committee with the roll call vote? Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Papagay, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Papagay votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene Sell, how do you vote? Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., how do you vote? Honorable Vince James, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene Sell, how do you vote? Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene Sell, how do you vote? Honorable Madam Chair, Crowdy, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 3 not voting. Chair.
Yes, sorry. Sometimes I talk and I'm on mute. I apologize. Thank you for the vote, Shadeja. We'll move on. She has Mr. Jackson. I did forward you and your team this written report so you can have it for your records as it's as we're trying to move forward in not only implementing the DNET action plan, but how we can increase support services for our victims of violence. So I did send you out that committee report if you can review. But as we move on with the agenda, we will receive a report from Vernon Jackson, Acting Chief Prosecutor, Office of the Prosecutor, regarding United States Department of Justice tribal consultation, the status of sexual assault cases, and is this the attorney for the United States? I never get this right. District Attorney decline federal cases. So what we can do is, if I could get a motion and a second for the report, we'll hear the report and then ask questions. Thank you. A motion on the report, please.
Honorable Madam Chair, Crowdy.
Yeah.
This is Delegate James.
Delegate James, your motion for the report.
I apologize, but I did text you that I was voting green. I'm sorry,
yes,
but we're having our Steamboat Chapter Easter event. And when I was being called on, that's when we were doing the posting of colors and the national anthem. I apologize, but I did text you.
No.
And then also, I'll go ahead and motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I accept that motion, I would like Sherelle to recognize Delegate James' vote green. He did text. And if you could give me the new vote count for the record. Thank you.
Okay, Shada, the vote for report A is 4 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 not voting. Honorable Chair Crowdy not voting, and Honorable Eugene So not voting, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Shadeja. And so then we'll recognize Delegate James' motion for the report. Thank you. Is there a second for the report? Committee members will need a second to hear the report from Acting Chief Prosecutor.
Second, Delegate Paul Begay.
Oh, yeah, thank you. She has the motion. The report has been seconded by Delegate Begay. She has Vernon, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Jackson. I hope everybody can hear me okay.
We could hear you.
Okay, I will try to make this report as brief and also as concise as I can concerning the issues that are on the agenda this morning. Thank you, Delegate Crotty, for allowing me to come and to speak on these items, the US DOJ tribal consultation, the status of SA cases on the Navajo Nation, and the status of the declined cases from the US Attorney's offices for Utah, New Mexico, and Arizona. This will be a high level, so to speak, presentation, and certainly any questions that may be out there concerning aspect of my presentation can go deeper as I get the questions presented to me, if there are any. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, distinguished council delegates that are here this morning. I know everybody's got different things going on. We got half a day type of a thing, and so I will be as brief as I can. First of all, on the DOJ tribal consultation, the Office of the Prosecutor is working to prepare our final remarks to be presented to the Washington, D.C. office concerning the two-pronged approach concerning the consultation. The first one is going to be along the lines of victim advocate services and how we're seeing the transition of the change in terms of some of the things we're doing with the victim advocate program with the Navajo Nation. Some of the internal infrastructure setups, some of the way that we've set up the supervisory status over all the advocates, some of the other moves that we have made to be more responsive to the issues that have been brought up, particularly in the tribal response plan, community plan, TCRP exercises that we've been through. Most certainly the TCRP exercises have really helped us to really sharpen our edge concerning what we're doing with the victim advocate program. Incidentally, I do have Alexandria Duane on the phone with us this morning. She is the acting principal victim witness advocate for the Navajo Nation Office of the Prosecutor. She is on the phone, and I will turn parts of it over to her as we talk about the victim witness advocate program with the Office of the Prosecutor, to have her highlight any thoughts or to provide her input concerning some of the things that I'll be talking about. So under the DOJ tribal consultation approach with the Office of the Prosecutor, we are finalizing our remarks, our statements to add to the dissertation, if you would, that the Washington, D.C. office is going to be putting together concerning the responses to the framing questions that were brought forward as a result of the tribal consultation effort concerning crime in our communities, what we're going to be doing to help to mitigate some of those issues that relate to the causes of crime. The two prongs that that I mentioned is, one is the victim witness advocate approach. The other prong is the void that has been created as a result of declined cases from the U.S. Attorney's Office back to the Navajo Nation. The void in terms of the lack of criminal investigators who could help streamline, in particular, the topic of this committee meeting, sexual assault, let's say involving children, involving adults, the cases that have been declined. Once the cases do get declined, the perspective is that the federal government is no longer interested in prosecuting, And all of a sudden we enter a point where we don't have the criminal investigators necessary to help us to go forward with some of these cases. So that's the two-prong approach that we're making to the tribal consultation effort. Certainly, there are comments that we can make concerning what we can do to help streamline some of the other issues that are involved in the framing questions. But those are the two main focus areas that we're concentrating on here with the Office of the Prosecutor. We feel like those are the two areas that we could really provide a big contribution to. And as you've heard me say, the TCRP approach has really helped us to sharpen our edge and help us to ask critical questions, help us to reassess different approaches we're using and other areas. So that is on the U.S. DOJ tribal consultation effort. I'm a little bit at a disadvantage as to exactly, Honorable Delegate Crotty, how you would like to have had me approach that question concerning the DOJ consultation efforts. But what I've just now articulated are areas that I feel are germane to this committee in terms of what the things that we've been looking at, the things that we've been discussing going forward. So I'm most certainly open to any questions that anybody may have concerning the tribal consultation effort with DOJ. And of course, we know through Honorable Delegate Crotty that there is another consultation effort with the Health and Human Services group, who are now stepping up and preparing to provide a plan of approach that has a little bit different spin than DOJ, but there are still relevancies back to President Biden's executive order moving to make communities safe communities on the Navajo Nation. So that's on the US DOJ tribal consultation. So I'm open for any questions that anybody may have concerning that, but I'll go ahead and hit on these other two items for the purposes of time. And if you have questions, I most certainly will open it up at the end. Number two is the status of the sexual assault cases. And in particular, we're talking about cases that have been declined by the U.S. Attorney's Office, because in most situations, those are probably the most egregious ones that we're looking at in terms of sexual assault of adults, of children. And one may ask, why were they declined by the federal government? Why will they not prosecute? There are a litany of reasons why they will not prosecute. Just a couple of them is a lack of evidence on the part of the report that was submitted to them by the criminal investigators to offer to them a case for prosecution. One rebuttal for declining is lack of evidence. The report doesn't sufficiently establish that the perpetrator did commit the crime, let's say, at the federal level, to prove at the federal level. Certainly at the Navajo Nation level, the proof is not necessarily less. It's always beyond a reasonable doubt, but there are leeways that we have at the Navajo Nation level where we can prosecute these cases if all of the pieces are in place. So what is going on with these cases now that have been declined, sexual assault cases? Many of the cases are being presented for prosecution in Navajo Nation courts. Some of them are having to be dismissed because of the fact that the statute of limitations has ensued on the case. That means that we're no longer within the area, the period where we can prosecute. And there's a whole discussion that can be had concerning statute of limitations and how we reach those stages. Many of them relate to when the federal government actually got the case, when they actually made the decision to decline, and when we actually got the declination from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the cases that have reached a point of merit that we feel should be prosecuted within the courts of the Navajo Nation. Those cases have been filed. Those cases have been put forth in terms of holding their perpetrators responsible, in terms of charging them. And of course, they have rights to legal counsel. They have rights to due process, and also to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they did commit the crime. So the status is, the cases are going forward. Some of the cases are being dismissed because of statute of limitation issues, for instance. So the status is as is. The last piece is going to be declination of cases from the U.S. Attorney's Office. We have had a series of meetings with U.S. Attorney's offices in New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona, most recently within the last, let's say, 2 months, helping to sharpen our edge concerning how these cases are declined and how they're processed, and how the United States Attorney's Office goes into a decision-making process to decline the case. I feel like we have reached a point to where we have received positive responses from U.S. Attorney's offices concerning how these cases are declined, the reasons why they're declined, to how we actually get the case, and how the cases are identified to us concerning the declinations, because there was a period there where there were cases that we were receiving where the criminal investigators didn't know about the case. The FBI had some understanding of the case, but didn't know exactly how it originated. And it was because of these problems that were apparent concerning how these cases were being presented, in particular to the FBI. In these meetings that we've had with the U.S. Attorney's Office, we've also had meetings. In those meetings, also FBI agents. We recently had a meeting at Twin Arrows with the FBI and also with the U.S. Attorney's Office concerning these cases, major crime cases, and what we're doing to make it better in terms of the cohesiveness, the relationships. We talked about MDTs. We talked about what is the best approach for strengthening the MDTs, the multidisciplinary teams, what steps we should take to ensure that we're really hitting the mark and having these meetings. And there were decisions that we made as to how we were going to start organizing those teams across the Navajo Nation in terms of creating a more efficient platform to have these cases investigated. In particular, Kayenta was used as an example. The MDT team that is there, that consists of the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Prosecutor's Office, and also Navajo Criminal Investigations. That particular MDT setup was talked about a lot. It was modeled as the type of infrastructure that we should have to process these cases. So the good news about these decline cases, first of all, is that we have received positive results from all of the U.S. Attorney's offices concerning how these cases arrive here at our doorstep, back from their offices, in terms of the identification of the cases, who the perpetrators are, and from what area of the Navajo Nation these cases come from. Just as a footnote, it's important for us to know these things because it allows us to figure out which district that these cases should be filed in, which district court they should be filed in. And when we don't have that information, it's a lot of phone calls, it's a lot of asking questions as to where the case came from, etc. But the good news is we're seeing a positive trend where we're getting these cases presented to us in a better format. We're also categorizing and capturing the data and also reporting all these declinations now in our quarterly reports to the Navajo Nation Council, informing them as to which state the case was declined from, the allegation of the case, and and whatnot. So we're seeing a positive spin in that regard. We're also seeing a good thing happening with the MDT discussion. We're also seeing the third point, a good meeting, a good cohesiveness that's developing as we go forward with the U.S. Attorney's offices in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. Again, my name is Vernon Jackson. I am the acting chief prosecutor for the Navajo Nation. Some of you may ask a question, what's with the acting? Or is there going to be a permanent appointment as a chief prosecutor? The answer to that is yes. There should be an appointment made by the Attorney General soon. The job vacancy announcement was closed on March the 30th. So I anticipate that the Attorney General will make a selection of the applicants soon. So that's what I have. Thank you very much. I turn it back to you, Honorable Delegate Crotty.
Oh, she asked for your report. Did you want to defer any time to Alexandria so she can provide some updates on how, what are the plans for increasing the system-based victim advocacy?
Yes, thank you for that. And thank you for reminding me of that commitment that I made concerning allowing Alexandria also to come in and to give her remarks. Alexandria?
Alexandria Dwayne, yun siya kapaan na tohaglini bashashin ashin dashache ani dashanella. So yes, I do want to kind of bring light to our system-based advocacy program. And within our updates, I want to make sure that we're trying to ensure that we have a great collaboration with not only, departments within the Navajo Nation, but also organizations, nonprofits. So with our advocacy program, we do rely on law enforcement. So, obviously, we're working on ensuring that we can get those referrals from whether it be law enforcement or within our prosecutor's office, but also relying on our resources when it comes to nonprofit organizations.
Perfect. Thank you, Alexandria. And just for the committee's information, could you provide some insight in terms of your funding and how this committee can assist with your efforts to collaborate with system-based victim services? Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Delegate Crotty. So with our funding, we are subjected to the USDOJ, which is the United States Department of Justice. But when it comes to, our system-based advocacy, we do, it would be very beneficial for vehicles, just because when it comes to the criminal procedure and individuals that need to attend court dates or individuals that need to attend any sort of forensic interviews, as a system-based advocacy program, we would like to provide that transportation for these individuals that are going through the Navajo Nation criminal procedure.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that, Shadeja. So committee members, are there any questions for acting prosecutor or delegated prosecutor Vernon Jackson and Ms. Alexandra Dwayne regarding any information that they provided to the committee in this report? Committee members.
Madam Chair,
Delegate So is recognized being on the call, and she asked, did you have any questions?
with the prosecutor.
Oh.
I'm a really been on this can't okay. I wonder if he can sometime report to all the incident that happened. Some of the cases, where are they? What is being done? What happened to them, etc. A lot of cases. I always stress my sister that got lost and was found in Del Muerto with only her bones. And those kind of investigations, the family don't know what's going on with that Navajo. So we don't know if it's just closed or is it ongoing or where are they. I would really like to understand because this happened and we're still looking forward to what has come up with it yet. It is, yes, and I really thank you.
Oh, yeah. So, Mr. Jackson, are you familiar with Delegate So's case regarding his sister that was reported missing, and ultimately her remains were found, and the family was never provided an update from law enforcement in terms of what is the status of that case? Would you be able to give some guidance on what now we consider cold cases or the work of the Office of the Prosecutor, what type of support you would need to review these cases that the families are requesting information and status on? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question, Delegate. So I'm sorry to hear about your sister, and I want to say first of all that I have to clarify that we are the prosecution branch of the Navajo Nation, which means that the police will have completed their investigation and provided to us a completed report along with criminal complaints. We go forward and we charge the individuals responsible for the alleged crime. That's what we do. However, when it comes to this specific investigatory function, it's the police, it's the criminal investigation program that actually handles that part of the process. And I'm not going to push this off on them. Your question this morning, Honorable Delegate So, I will not do that. I will say this though, just to clarify that the prosecutors wait for the criminal complaints and the arrest report or the investigative report to reach us, and then we charge. However, what I can do is I can research the information concerning if anybody was charged in the matter, if there was any suspects, if there was any criminal complaints that were filed against the alleged perpetrators, and I may be able to pick up a trail from there. I can also liaison with Michael Henderson and also Daryl Noon to find out if I could see if we could get the police report so that I could see exactly where the case was to determine if somebody should be charged or not. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, the police are responsible for ensuring that the case is investigated thoroughly and that the case is presented for prosecution. So I'll do that for you, Honorable Delegate So, and I will get back to you with the information that I uncovered. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and this is important. And as we build out, we want to create a visual pathway for families so they understand when there's an incident that takes place. What does that look like? What does that criminal justice framework look like? And how can we intertwine that with resources? So thank you for that commitment to follow up. And I believe if we could get more information on this case, we also can provide that information to the BIA Missing and Murdered Unit, and they could provide some more support for Delegate So and his families and the other families that are waiting for an update. Delegate So, Shiaj, do you have a follow-up question?
I just wanted to know, across the Navajo Nation, how many families are waiting that has missing person, and a bit of castle took days, years, months, years now. I just want to know where we stand on those issues across the Navajo Nation. I'm pretty sure a lot of families really want to know what really did happen, and they're never out of it. What happened or where they're at and all that stuff. Thank you. And also,
Thank you, Shiaj. So I'll also provide some insight. So Navajo Nation, we're going to be meeting with the oversight, budget and finance and the oversight. There is a condition of appropriation on the Division of Public Safety to develop a missing and murdered persons unit. That was promised to the families in 2017. And so they did have until the end of the third quarter, which was March 31st. So we'll be working together as oversight to see how that's being developed, because we had a meeting with NAMIS. They're the federal database that enters in missing persons into their database. And the nation, we receive a monthly report on how many missing individuals and their tribal, when they're identified through their tribal process. So currently, I believe that system just says there's under 30 Navajo relatives who are still missing, and they've been about 33, I believe, that been recovered through their system, through their reporting. But when we talk to families and work with community advocates, many of those who are on the line, there's an all-volunteer group called Navajo Nation Missing Persons Updates, or Navajo Missing Person Updates, and they have identified at least 72 missing relatives. And so that is the concern, and that's the concern of the families. And for example, like Grandma Ella Mae is not on that national database, but here back home, we know that she's missing, and her family is actually going to walk all the way to Washington, D.C. for justice. And so we're, with the support of the council, the families are able to do these awareness walks and get information. Last Saturday, we hosted a walk with the support of the Office of the Speaker for Pepita Red Hair. And I know this Saturday, tomorrow, the family, Renee's family, is asking for help to find her in the Shiprock area. So I just want to continue and deeply appreciate the support of the council and the Office of the Speaker, but we want to get those answers to you, Shiaj, and to all of the families. So, I understand that wasn't the purpose of the report, but I wanted to give that insight to give you an update on what we're doing with missing and murdered Diné relatives. And Mr. Jackson is part of the executive team when he mentioned that tribal community response plan. So there's a disconnect. We have law enforcement and folks meeting, which is great. They're having these conversations. And now is the time, if council can help support bringing in the families and those impacted so that they can let law enforcement know what are the challenges, and then law enforcement working with other providers, we could provide that wraparound support for the families. Okay, so thank you for that question, Shiaj, and I'm always just praying through this work that we get you the answers that you need for your family. So yeah, thank you.
Madam.
Delegate Potty, this is Delegate Brown.
Yes, Vice Chair Brown, please ask your question.
Yes, yeah, thank you for the presentation. A lot of good information. And it's always good to know that the local areas that we represent that are doing their job as well. And I know that next Wednesday, and I think it's every month that the Kayenta Police Department, they have a regular meeting with all the stakeholders, including FBI, U.S. Marshals, CI, prosecutors, and I think our next meeting is next Wednesday on the 20th. So it'll be a Zoom meeting, and I think collaboration like that is really helpful if we can also allow other police departments and other agencies to do similar, and that will allow the conversation from community members, community leaders, and to bring these very important issues. I actually was on the phone this morning with Captain Martin Page from Kayenta Police Department, and I did email that to you this morning, Madam Chair, and we dropped a legislation on the 3 positions that are still, there's just a language change that needs to happen, but I'll follow up with that. And the other part to my question is, I wanted to know, I know that there's no laws that exist currently on any type of violence or discrimination against our LGBTQ community members. I know that other states still laws against any type of hate crimes. And I wanted to know, I know you probably don't have this information, but I know in your work that you will come across any type of data. And I'm asking this question. I know Delegate Eugenia Charles Zoom brought this up before when we introduced the legislation about, as a former prosecutor, some of the hate crimes, but there are no laws on the Navajo Nation protecting the LGBTQ community. When I say LGBTQ, I mean like the lesbian, gay, transgender, queer community members that are not. So if you can reconfirm to the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee, the delegates here, leadership here, at your work, are there other possible cases that might go through? And what kind of laws do you think will help to protect? I know there's a suicide piece to this, and I know that's not really your area. But as a prosecutor, do you sometimes sit there and say to yourself or amongst your colleagues, I wish this law would exist. This would protect this group of people. I wish this policy was there so there's no hole in this law. I wish that this Navajo Nation leadership could do this. There are other laws that are going through that I think are really important, and I'm coming from the facts based on what that's going to look like to protect all our people, not just a certain section of privileged Navajo people who get the privilege of being protected with their insurance, with their ability to be who they are. So if you can please respond to that, I'll be listening for that also.
Thank you, Vice Chair Brown. We'll go to Shania, Mr. Jackson. If I do think you wanted to provide a comment for Delegate so please do so, and Delegate Brown. If I could ask staff to provide notes, the information that we're receiving is critical, and as we move forward, we will be adding these items to our logic model, and that means we'll be changing some policies and requesting procedures for accountability. Thank you. Mr. Jackson, please respond. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is going to be, first of all, to Honorable Eugene. So if I'm hearing correctly, I think he came back on the line and he said he wanted to know information concerning missing and, let's say, I guess, I don't want to use the word murder. Let me just use it for a minute. MMIP data for the Navajo Nation. I think he came back and he generalized that and said he just wanted to know it from a general perspective. I just need clarification. Does he want to know specifically about his family member, or does he want to know in general the information from a general perspective? That's my question back to Honorable Delegate Eugene So. And I'll just continue on real quickly and just say back to. Go ahead.
Yes. Before you answer Vice Chair Brown, let me get that information from you because I think that's critical, and the follow-up to Delegate Eugene So. So Shiaj, Delegate Eugene So, could you provide some clarification to Mr. Jackson regarding your request? Thank you.
Oh, so like he said, in general, not all you see a lot of. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are waiting out there trying to know what happened with when they found the remains or whatever happened to a lost person for so many years now. Some of them. So those are the people I'm talking for. Example is my sister. That's what I put it as an example. What happened? We haven't heard anything yet as an example, but I'm pretty sure there are other families out there that are still waiting to. Agency can get in general, everybody, what's going on out there, what happened. Thank you.
Oh, Shiaj, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Jackson, your response?
I received that. I hear that. Thank you for that clarification, Honorable Delegate Eugene So. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, did you want to continue with the response for Vice Chair Brown?
Yes.
You have the floor.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you for that question, Delegate Brown. I think it's very important that we look at the offenses, whether it's in Title 17 now under a general crimes banner, so to speak, whether it could be classified as aggravated battery, aggravated assault, harassment, or specifically a particular offense that could be created by the Navajo Nation Council in terms of a revision to Title 17 that addresses any type of offenses that may be against the LGBT, the gay, lesbian, transgender, queer community. They're relevant. They are just as relevant as any family member that we have. And I think that from the perspective of the prosecutor's office, we look at those cases from that lens. That said, has there ever been a situation where we said that we wish that there would have been a law that would address a particular type of, let's say, offense that's not covered by a general offense charge that's under Title 17 now? Has that ever happened? The answer to that is yes. It has happened where it wasn't necessarily an aggravated battery or aggravated assault type of a situation, but the overtures, the intent, the maliciousness of the act clearly substantiates, at least in the mind's eye, and also in the outside communities of the Navajo Nation, that some of these malicious acts have been codified and made offenses, criminal offenses. And so we will continue to remain poised to offer suggestions for revision of the law to help support the protection of all communities, including the gay, lesbian community, that we do everything possible to provide that protection. So I think your question is relevant, and I think it's very important. And I think as we move on and as we begin to look at the mission and the goals of the Sexual Assault Prevention Committee, that these types of initiatives, these types of discussions will take shape and form as we go forward to talk about laws that need to be changed to protect these important communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shaz. Vice Chair Brown, do you have a follow-up clarification or question?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry, my screen keeps going out. If you can email me some of the possible changes, and we can certainly get to work on that. Again, it's for all people. And I think the law tends to be obsolete at this time, just protecting a certain sector of the Navajo population. I just actually did not think I was going to say that. I just realized that there's no equality in this, in protection for all Navajo people. So I will please send some of the information, and maybe sometimes we'll get together and see how we can protect all our Navajo people. And so we can reduce some of the hate crimes, the vicious attacks. And there's always going to be a link with this to suicide. And also, when we say, when our people, why are we overburdened with the courts, the jail system, the correction facility? And I think I think some of us are aware the systemic issue is actually going back to some of these historical traumas and how we keep inflicting trauma on each other, the Neh people on the Neh people. There's a lot of ignorance on this part where sometimes maybe unknowingly we are doing this to each other, and it keeps perpetuating. So I'm saying this to create a safer, better Navajo nation for all people. So for giving us the report. On that, I don't have any follow-up questions. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, Vice Chair Brown, I appreciate that. Committee members, are there any other questions that you would like to ask regarding this report? Thank you. Okay, Shaz, I do have some feedback from some of the participants who are listening to the call. So I can email you these, but if you're able to answer any here at the committee, we'd appreciate that, or we'll look forward to your response. So I'm going to try to refrain. So what is the statute of limitation on these cases? Could you give us some insight on to the committee? What is currently the statute of limitation, and if there's any recommendations, or do we need to do follow-up regarding your report and prosecuting some of the sexual assault cases or cases that are declined by AUSA? Thank you.
Yes, just real briefly, the statute of limitation is 3 years to stop the tolling of the time a criminal complaint needs to be filed. Once that criminal complaint is filed, the time is the statute of limitation stops because of the filing of the criminal complaint. But in between the time that the allegation is received, the investigation ensues, and a review is done by the prosecutor's office at the Navajo Nation level or the federal level. If we're talking about a Navajo Nation offense, we're talking about three years. That's the statute of limitation. The other day I was looking at the statute of limitation issue in Title 17, and I noticed that the statute of limitations for fraud, misuse of office, embezzlement, those types of charges have a 10-year statute of limitation. And then when you go to a sexual assault of a minor, it's still at 3 years. So the equity of that certainly is on its face evident, and there definitely needs to be some revisiting concerning the statute of limitation, particularly when you put it in the context of the Navajo Nation, or even Indian country, where you have two sovereign entities who are looking at the incident of sexual assault. And it could take years, literally, for the federal government to decline the case. And by the time it gets back to us, it's getting closer to 3 years. So those are some of my quick remarks concerning the statute of limitations and some thoughts about how perhaps moving forward we can make some of those changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Shares, Mr. Jackson. And so I appreciate you giving some insight, and we'll continue the conversation. I do know that we had a team back in 2017, 2018 that made amendments to Title 17. There's some challenges because some of our laws are not updated, and I would like to encourage or see how we can bring back all of the parties to look at certain sections of that law, and if we could prioritize the statute of limitation. I understand, and we attempted a comprehensive approach, and recently there was another attempt, and that this may be too big to do in a comprehensive way, but if we could commit, and I can commit to looking at changing the statute of limitation. Also, the other question that was raised is we're looking at staff, if you could just help me maintain decorum on this call. Just anyone who is not speaking, if you can mute yourself, it's *6. Thank you. The other area was victim rights, and our advocates provided some information on and understanding different sovereigns and understanding the uniqueness from Navajo Nation and the states. But there is a push to enhance our victim rights in Title 17. And because you have advocates now on your team, which is wonderful, there's a section where we wanted to add a section to protect advocates. I will send that to you, Shiaj, and I would invite you and call in those who want to continue to have this discussion so we could enhance different sections. But before we do that, I wanted to know, has your office, and not wanting to duplicate some of the areas that you're focusing in on, are you looking at the victim rights section of Title 17? And do you have any recommendations for your system-based advocates so that they are protected legally as they do this work for our survivors of crime? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I will say that the victims' rights issue is an important one for more than one reason. Under that banner of victims' rights is also this understanding about the protection of the advocates in performing their job duties and responsibilities. One of the areas that we have identified within the victim witness program with the Navajo Nation Office of the Prosecutor is the issue concerning discovery and also confidentiality in regards to the victim advocates' role with these victims. Some of the prosecutors are having some difficulty in navigating how much the victim advocates can really extend themselves in providing the service without some sort of policy or some sort of rule in place to help guide them in terms of discovery and also in terms of confidentiality. We're working those areas. I say that to provide a response to you, to tell you that there are certainly robust discussions ensuing with the TCRP folks and also with Alexandria Duane, acting principal victim witness advocate for the Office of the Prosecutor's program concerning victims' rights and how that we can incorporate these changes into Title 17 to bring out these particular points of their job duties and responsibilities in a better way, in a more defined way, so as to help them to do their jobs as effectively as possible. So the answer to your question, Madam Honorable Delegate Crotty, is that there are going to be some recommendations that we can put forth before the Navajo Nation Council delegates to help strengthen this understanding of victim rights, both from the victim rights platform and also from the platform of the advocates themselves. I will say that we did look at this victims' rights statute, proposed statute that was offered up to us, and all the prosecutors did take a look at it. And I will just say briefly that there are parts of that proposed legislation or proposed revision to Title 17 that needs a little bit more discussion, but we're open to talking about how we can implement some of these provisions in a more effective way than certainly the way that it sets right now. So that's the answer to your question concerning recommendations, concerning victims' rights, what kind of work that we're doing in that regard, what we have done, the protection of the victim witness advocates. I hit on that also. So I hope that I've answered your question, Honorable Delegate Crotty.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shiaj. If I could ask our advisor, Ms. Spencer, if you can coordinate that conversation with the Office of the Prosecutor and their advocates, we can meet with them. Hopefully they're available Friday mornings while we discuss policy and procedure. If not, we can coordinate a time and we could review and look at those recommendations and move them forward through the committee, the subcommittee. So thank you for that response. Committee members, I want to make sure that you're also able to provide any questions to Chief Prosecutor Jackson. Committee members, do you have any questions for Chief Prosecutor while we're reviewing or receiving this report? Okay, I do know, Shiaz, that you mentioned your quarterly report is completed and will be sent to delegates. We do receive that quarterly report from the Department of Justice. I just need to make sure, do we receive your full report or is it condensed and then sent over to council? What we're going to be looking at is we're partnering with Diné College, Diné Policy Institute. They are going to have a researcher help this subcommittee in some of our work. And they have a background in, I think it's criminology, or what they're going to do is research in terms of what's currently being provided on the Navajo Nation, what were some of the historic types of programs that were made available, like the child advocacy centers, and then make recommendations to the committee. So I just need to make sure that you're aware of that, because that might also help with your efforts if you need any research or areas that need additional collaboration. So they'll be our university partners, and once that's outlined a little bit more, we're pulling together a scope of work on how they can help us. And so please let me know if there's areas that you would need additional research, or like law enforcement, how they were funded with their consultant, if that's the best route for your department and your division. There's been other areas in terms of Office of the Prosecutor I know that this council has supported an increase in funding, and also we will need to help the Office of the Prosecutor with additional positions. And so we'll just need to know then what are those unmet needs. And I could go back to our budget forums, but as we're building up this next budget process, we're looking at how to support the criminal justice system and how to support the wraparound services. So I just wanted to let you know, as a courtesy, Mr. Jackson, there's a lot of ongoing conversations. So I just try to make sure everyone is aware of some of the opportunities, and especially the subcommittee. It's through our work and our logic model that we've been able to now partner with the Nick College. Hopefully we can reach out and partner with NTU and other regional universities to give us the support that we need to look at best practices out in Indian country or surrounding communities, and best practices so that we're accountable to our relatives who unfortunately are in the system because a crime has been committed against them. So Mr. Jackson, we'll continue to have those conversations, Shiaj.
Yes.
Is there any, okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that this, I'll call it momentum, this energy that is happening in terms of bringing all these pieces together on this committee's side, as well as our side, and as well as some of the things that we're doing with the Department of the Division of Public Safety, both the criminal investigators and also the police program. That momentum, that effort, that lift that we're doing, although it may seem separate, I sense that there's going to be a unification of those efforts. For example, during the TCRP discussion that we had in Twin Arrows, we actually did go through a case. We actually went through a case that involved a missing a minor child, and we worked through that process all the way to the end of the process. The term cradle to grave was used in terms of looking at the entire spectrum of what happens in the Navajo Nation criminal justice system when one of those situations happen. And so there was a lot of eye-opening moments. There was a lot of robust discussions. There was a lot of debate concerning who should be responsible for different functions within the criminal justice system, the Navajo Nation criminal justice system. And it was an exercise that really helped us to really understand where those gaps were. And as I listened to you speak, and as I listen to you articulate all the things that this committee is doing to move forward in some of those same areas, I think that there at some point is going to be a good unification, whether it is on Title 17, whether it is on victim witness advocacy, whether it is on the services that are provided to those who, the family members who become missing. I think it's going to be a good thing as we go into the future, as we keep up this momentum. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Shiaj. Yes, I believe we do have a lot of momentum, and the recognition goes to the families who've been brave enough to tell their stories, and for all of the advocates who are on the line who stand there with them. And so we appreciate that there's this momentum happening, and we look forward to the time where we can connect and enrich the conversations and really have strengthened communication, and the goal is healing and making sure our communities feel safe. I do want to mention a case, and this case is not in our system, and it's currently in the courts in a different state, but please, I think this is how we also need to look at how, and we're at the time now where we're looking at the name or the actions of missing and murdered and their relatives, and looking at now how we can provide support to those families. So I'm also, when I have to say murdered, it pains me. It's reality, but it pains me. And so we'll be looking at how then we pull this all together, what this movement will look like to heal together, is looking at then some of these cases. And I'm going to say the family has reached out to me and has asked for support, and we've had advocates, our advocates support the family. Shiaj, if you could look at Danielle Cheat's case. It's not in our courts. It won't be on your docket, but she was targeted. She was groomed. She was taken. She was violated. And when the family was able to recover her, the family felt no support from the nation, her mother government, her people. And so she's brave. She's brave to tell her story, and the family is doing the best that they can. But that's where we can look at and say, how can this system, knowing these cases exist, knowing we lost Ashton Mike and she was assaulted and murdered, knowing we lost Tiffany Lee, abducted, tortured, murdered, knowing that we have these cases, what can we do collectively? And I am here to create that safe space for the families to tell their stories, and then how we could keep our system accountable. So we're here together, and that's why I appreciate this subcommittee. These are very hard areas to discuss. We have consulted with our Hataflis and knowledge holders. Also, we have families of well-known pastors to ground us in this work so that we actively can talk about these issues in a way of healing, in a way of coming together. And I do see that movement, and I want to acknowledge those words. And I do see opportunity. And what we also have to look at then is how do we support the families, because they're not only in crisis, but they feel forgotten. And I think collectively we can have a hand in their healing. So I wanted to just ground us with that, but I appreciate your feedback and recognizing we are on a report. Again, committee members, are there any questions that you would like to ask our prosecutor and their team? Okay. So we'll give ourselves space to kind of process this. Mr. Jackson, I don't know if you have anything written, or we'll just defer to your quarterly report, and we'll make sure that is a public link. That is an area that is on the Navajo Nation website, that is in our reports for council, and you'll see the Office of the Prosecutor's report under the Department of Justice. And so I just want to then say, in looking at some of the public comments on our social media, thank you for sharing your stories, and our hope is that we continue to honor those relatives who have passed, and continue to recover those missing relatives, and also make sure that we do this together, and that's the way that we can heal. And so committee members, if there's no other questions, I'm going to then say if we could get support for the roll call for the vote. Thank you very much.
Okay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
Delegate Brown votes in favor.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Vince James, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene Sill, how do you vote?
Vote in favor, thank you.
Honorable Eugene Sill votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote? Honorable Vince James, how do you vote? Honorable Madam Chair Claudia, 4 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 not voting. Honorable Chair Claudia not voting, and Honorable Vince James not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Shadija. Just give me a moment to look on if Delegate James was able to text in. Not yet, but I do know.
Delegate James Green.
Yes, thank you, Delegate Vince James. I did see you on our Zoom call, so thank you for your vote. Shadija, please restate the vote for the record. Thank you.
The vote for report B is 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and Chair not voting, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Shadija. I appreciate that. And so we have accepted the report, so I will go back to the agenda. And 6, old business, none. 7, old business, new business, none. We'll close the meeting. Committee members, are there any announcements? Yes, thank you for the reminder. I'd like to announce that the Navajo Nation Council, we are hosting a sexual assault awareness walk on Monday, April 18th. We will be sending out the flyer today. This annual walk will start at the Navajo Nation Museum at 9 o'clock. We plan to reach the council at 9 o'clock, and then from 9 to 10, we'll hold our press release, or is that what it's called? Whatever that's called, where we then have where the subcommittee will provide recommendations and policies to address sexual assault here on the Navajo Nation and prevention work. One of the areas that we'll look at is the statute of limitation, victim rights, understanding wraparound services, and also our work has been in terms of how many rape kits are outstanding and have not been processed. I've called in Senator Lujan's office, and they're going to be assisting the committee to get that information from Quantico. We'll also be looking at enhancing our victim advocacy service and looking at what type of support is provided to our children who are victims of sexual assault, and looking at how we can connect with including additional child advocacy centers around the nation. So that will be announced on the 18th. Please join us. If you're not able to join us, we'll stream online. Please wear teal. That is the color for sexual assault awareness. We also recognize this is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And so we integrate those two awareness. So please join us, wear your mask. And if there's no other announcements, and I just appreciate, so let me tell you, as a chair, this gets very emotional. So take some time to take care of yourself. Take some time to ground yourself. And I just appreciate the subcommittee members for continuing to show up and being here for these courageous conversations. I deeply appreciate that, colleagues. So I will ask for a motion for adjournment. May I receive a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Delegate Brown, I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Delegate So, did you want to second the motion?
Okay, senor.
Okay, so we'll motion by Vice Chair Brown, second by Delegate So. Are there any questions before we move to the vote to adjourn? Next meeting will be May 20th at 10 o'clock. We also host housing justice meetings, meetings with our advocates, and missing and murdered and their relatives meetings throughout the week. So if you need that information, please contact my office or the council delegate's office, and we'll get you that information. So we'll move to the vote. Sherelle, Shadeja, or Shadid Loreen, do you have any other questions for the committee before we adjourn?
Madam Chair, no, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shadid. We'll send you those other questions for Department of Corrections and our prosecutor's office. So Shadeja, please help us with the roll call vote to end the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate Jam votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Madam Chair Crowdy, you have 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and Chair not voting, Madam Chair.
Augustine, thank you, Shadeja. So we've adjourned our meeting. Thank you for everyone being on the call. Again, if you don't have our contact information, you can reach the council delegate's office at 928-871. Lorene, help me with the last. What's the number to the delegate's office?
928-871-6380.
So it's 6380. If you have any, if you want to be added to the SAP agenda public announcements, or if you want additional information on the housing justice efforts, how to support our advocates here on Navajo Nation, and the policies and procedures when it comes to sexual assault work. So we will give you that information. Thank you very much, and we will talk soon. Hagwanet.